Well, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today on Cloud Managed Networking. My name is Chris Watkins. I head up the Network and Security PS division at Ultima, and alongside me I've got Darren Sinden, who's our lead solution specialist for networking at Ultima. So today we're going to run through Cloud Managed Networking, what it means, how it works, so some examples of how some of the products that we offer can sort of benefit you as a company, and then show you a bit of a quick demo of how that looks and feels from a management perspective, so you can see what how this could work for you. So in terms of the webinar itself, everyone will be on mute for the duration of the session, so you won't be able to sort of speak any questions out loud. But if you do have any questions as we go along, please feel free to ask any questions via the chat window on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar console, as shown on the picture there. We'll happily answer them at a convenient time as we go along, so feel free to ask anything as you need. So starting off about what is cloud networking, cloud managed networking, and why is it important? So it's something that's come around over the last few years. Traditionally, networking is very much an on-prem solution. You had on-prem switches, firewalls, access points, that kind of thing, and you typically have either standalone management or a centralized way of managing it. So this is just taking it a step further to kind of most companies are looking at cloud managed solutions where possible. And it's essentially taking that on-premise infrastructure, moving it to the cloud, and enable you to have a single management platform for multiple devices. Idea of it is it's sort of scalable from small right up to very big. So we've got customers who literally have one or two switches and a couple of access points, right up to large enterprises with hundreds of switches, hundreds of access points. So it's a one-size solution for everybody. And often one of the biggest advantages of it is that it's simplified. So the days of CLI-based configuration on a switch or an access point to make something work is gone. It's very much GUI-based, very graphical, a lot easier to manage. So therefore, that reduces the sort of IT overhead of sort of operating and managing that environment. So what does it look like? And I'll go into this in a bit more detail. So this is an example of the dashboard. So we're talking about Cisco solutions from Cisco Meraki today. So things like you can import the sort of plan of your office. We can then highlight where an access point is located within that office, and also right down to where a user is. We've got the ability to do things like perform some troubleshooting based on a client device being there, so we can do things like ping, we can see what kind of latency they're getting. We get to see different offices all located on one dashboard, so sort of almost a multi-tenant environment. So if you've got different locations or different subsidiaries of your company, we can see these all in one place. And the idea is just one single web console to enable you to do everything. So we cover that in a little bit more detail in the demo towards the end. In terms of how it works, so as we said, one of the big changes with this is it changes the way the sort of your infrastructure lays out. So in the past, if you're a sort of reasonable sized enterprise, you might have a number of different pieces of network infrastructure on premise. You then maybe have a virtual or physical management solution for that. So in the scenario of cloud managed networking, that concept is gone. Each of the devices talks directly to the cloud. So you need internet access for them to be able for that to happen. The changes are made in the cloud web console and then propagated down to the device. And it's literally that takes place in seconds. It's a pretty quick change, and it's just a different way of working. So most people find it simplified. That's what most of the feedback we get. And in terms of security from that, it's obviously all secured. The communication from the device to the cloud is secure. The communication from you as an admin to the cloud is HTTPS encrypted. And everything's sort of audited and audit trail. Every change is noted. Things like 2FA for logons, that kind of thing. So it's a secure way of working, and it's certainly something we're seeing more and more popular. So in terms of if you look at how the evolution of the platform has taken place, so originally when the platform first came out, it's very simple. It's kind of designed to look at things like just Wi-Fi access points, some fairly simple things around analytics, and over time that's got bigger and bigger. So there's integration now into things like iOS devices, Android devices, SD-WAN that everyone's very interested in these days is now part of the feature set. And it's a mixture of adding additional features to existing hardware and the console, or developing completely new products. So one of the more recent things that have been added to the portfolio in this scenario is cameras. So you can now have not only just network switches, access points, you can also have CCTV integrated into this as well. So there's a full sort of solution across the breadth of IT. And one of the main advantages of cloud is that it's a lot more agile than having to do manual firmware updates. So again, from an administrative point of view as an admin, you don't need to worry about having to roll out iOS upgrades or something like that on a Cisco switch, it's just this push cloud automatically during a defined maintenance window. So you've again simplified your sort of daily working. So we'll cover the different features again in a bit more detail later on. So briefly mentioned as part of the GUI, it's very much works very well for anyone with a distributed environment. So if you've got multiple sites, you can either do it on a map or just on a list. You can sort of get visibility of those sites, quick sort of RAG status, red, amber, green, to show what the status of that environment is. So if there's a problem, they're going to go red. That instantly means you can sort of go through and look at that in more detail. We can configure automated alertings. That could be email based, it could be SNMP, could be various different options in order to sort of see that. The idea again is it's a simple one-touch shop sort of place to look at all your information, all your configuration with no additional infrastructure required. In terms of sort of the level of detail and visibility we can get, so because the devices here are much more intelligent, they're not just a standard layer 2 device, we've got full layer 7 capabilities, so we can see applications that are running on the device, we can see the OS, the platform, the version even in a lot of cases that a device is operating on. So that enables us to do things like put policies on to say if we're seeing SIP traffic, we want to prioritize that with QoS. We could also say based on device type that if you're an iOS mobile device, you can't connect to a particular SSID, but a laptop can, that kind of thing. And from a wireless perspective, particularly, we can do things like performance analysis, troubleshooting, and sort of looking in more detail at exactly what the APs are doing, any conflicts or challenges it can see around them. And then the last piece around sort of devices is endpoints. It's one of the sort of less known features that Cisco Meraki can offer. We can essentially become an MDM that's all integrated into the existing platform. So you can have your wireless, your firewalls, your switches all managed through a central console, but also your devices. So that's across sort of Android, iOS devices, typically laptops, Windows, Mac, that kind of thing. And we can put profiles and policies on those around what users can and can't do. So it's competing with the likes of Intune and those kind of solutions out there, but from a single management perspective. From an analytics point of view, so again, because it's all web-based, there's some rich reporting available to us, so we can do things like location analytics. So in a retail environment, that's quite key. We get to see who's visiting the shop, for example, who's a repeat customer, where they're spending most of their time. So the dots on the right-hand side can show things like location heat maps. So depending on the industry or sector you're working in, this can be quite a beneficial feature to understand exactly what visitors to your environment are doing. It helps for planning. So if you know that users spend a large amount of time in a certain area, that means you can invest in higher power access points or multiple APs for resilience, that kind of thing, as part of your planning. And again, we'll show you that kind of scenario in a bit more detail during the demo. From a security perspective, it's got the standard kind of enterprise level integrations you expect, 802.1x AD authentication. It can also do a lot of social integration, so things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google accounts for logons to the system. So that's one just mainly for guest networks. But you can also do things like guest sponsor pages. So if a visitor's in your company, they come to you and say, I'd like guest access. They can just enter your email address as a sponsor and you can approve that to say that they're allowed access. So again, you're taking away the admin overhead of having to create manual guest accounts or having a completely open network that anyone can use. So it's the normal kind of solutions you'd expect to see. There's things like SMS even as well included as well. Then I have a concept called a security center. So the idea of this is sort of a high level sort of wrapper around all the different events that are taking place. So you get to see as a sort of a high level status report, what's going on in the network. Are we seeing attacks? There's a feature called Air Marshal, which is designed to look at rogue APs. So if somebody tries to set up a particular access point, I just realised the slides are not showing. Apologies. One moment. Let's try that again. All right, apologies. Right, we'll do a whistle-stop tour of the slides that that has not come through. So apologies for that. It obviously wasn't updating. So this is the GUI. I won't spend too much time on this one, because we'll show you this in the demo in a bit more detail. So I think that will probably be a little bit easier to see what that's doing. So we'll cover that as part of the demo. Let's just make sure that it does update. That looks good this time. So yeah, from a management perspective, I think we sort of talked through that. So there's nothing really more to add on top of that one. So the infrastructure, say, is very much a case of you don't need anything on-prem. You just need connectivity to the cloud, and that could be through this system, or it could be through a different system. It doesn't have to be through a Meraki solution to make that work. But it's very much around comms are needed to make this work. It can't operate without an internet connection. This is the sort of the timeline. So the timeline of sort of features and evolution of new activations is based on the hardware you're running. So a mixture of Wi-Fi, firewalls, the system management component for sort of device management, SD-WAN on the sort of the edge side of things. So these are all new features that are coming over time. So it's very much a scalable platform because it's cloud, so it's very agile to change as and when people need things, and that will update constantly. As literally quarterly releases of most of the updates. So in terms of the map, so this is how the map looks. Again, we'll show you this in a bit more detail on the demo, but it's essentially a RAG status. So green is good, red is bad. So I'll show you that in a bit more detail on the demo, exactly how that looks. Spoke about sort of the visibility you can get from the devices. So there you can see an example of SIP, along with the different kind of hosts that are connecting to it, what OS they're running, how much bandwidth they're using, that kind of thing. So again, we'll show you that in a bit more detail during the demo. These I'll show you through the demo, so it'll be a little bit easier to show you if we get back to where we were. And yeah, the last piece is, we're just talking about before, somebody kindly pointed out the slides aren't there, was around sort of analytics and sort of performance review. So this is one of the newer features, so things like the ability to see what kind of applications or end users are sort of using. So Office 365 is obviously a really common one. Skype for Business would be another one I see on our Teams quite a lot these days. So what the solution can do is actually track the sort of the performance and the user experience of that platform as part of this, so they can see exactly what's going on. So you as an administrator can say, okay, we know that things are actually pretty good, or no, we know there's a problem, and it'll try and help you sort of troubleshoot exactly what's going on there. So if that's a wireless issue, if it's a network or internet connectivity problem, we get to see exactly what's going on. So you can see this in a bit more detail. Things like latency and jitter and all that kind of thing is all displayed to you in very much a non-technical way. So it's designed to be a lot simpler to read. It's very graphical, lots of pictures, that kind of thing. So the idea being, rather than running CLI commands or debugs and things like that, we're able to just go ahead and sort of see things a lot quicker visually. So we cover those in a bit more detail in the demo. In terms of how the product portfolio is made up, so first one is access points. So mixture of both indoor and outdoor access points, so fairly standard. This includes right up to the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology, and we'll cover that in a bit more detail shortly. But one of the other features they have as part of this, they've got built-in Bluetooth beacons. So anyone that's doing anything around Bluetooth tracking or wayfinding, things like that, that's part of the solution. All of the features we sort of briefly touched on in terms of the analytics and layer 7 functionality, that's just default as part of this solution. So they're a lot more powerful than a traditional access point in terms of what the features they can run at. And you also get lifetime warranty. So the way the license works is you buy a cloud management license for all the different devices, and as part of that cloud management license, all the warranty is covered as part of that. So any issues, if the hardware fails or anything like that, they'll be automatically replaced. So a little bit about Wi-Fi 6. So Wi-Fi 6 is pretty new to anyone that's not aware of it. So the latest portfolio of access points has just been released with this. So what are the benefits of it? Biggest one is higher throughput. So traditionally APs were limited. So depending on the technology you've got today, it could be as slow as sort of 80, 90 meg even, or slower than that if it's a really old device. But you can now get gigabits of throughput based on the client and the access point being able to communicate in the right way. So that's one of the big changes. It's faster than wide speed for a lot of users these days. So as part of that, capacity and density is quite key. So there's now more aerials than you'd have traditionally in an older legacy AP. So in order to support that additional speed, you need that. So as a result, you can have more clients connected to a single access point, but still have a good experience. Traditionally, that's something that just wasn't possible. And then the last thing is battery life, which is a bit of an unexpected add-on for this. So the way that the new architecture works to do with sort of sleep modes and that kind of thing means that some of the testing they're seeing is up to 60% extra battery life. So Wi-Fi is one of the biggest drains on a laptop or mobile device. So the technology is part of built into Wi-Fi 6, if they're both Wi-Fi 6 compliant, will mean that you will get longer battery life out of a device. So. And this one, not one to go through now, but thought it might be useful just to send out as part of the slides after the presentation's finished, is just a comparison. So what are the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 over traditional legacy clients? So you can see that the two features we've sort of detailed there is applicable to both legacy and new clients, but a lot of the new features are relevant when you've got a mixture of clients and access points together. So that's one for read through later. So next one is the sort of edge perimeter security, the firewall side of things. So this offers a standard firewall like you'd see, on any edge network for your internet connectivity, but also things like VPN. VPNs on this platform are incredibly easy to set up. They're literally minutes, single-digit minutes. They're not even an hour or anything like that to set up. It's designed to be incredibly simple. That includes remote access VPNs or site-to-site VPNs. SD-WAN obviously falls under that kind of component too. So things like WAN optimization, WAN-based routing based on performance or load and things like that. The sort of next-gen firewall features you expect to see, things like intrusion prevention, detection, content filtering. So there's a full catalogue of URL databases included. So 100 and something categories included by default. You can allow or deny based on either an AD user or a device. Cisco's AMP, which is their next generation sandboxing sort of malware solution. So that's included as well as part of this. So that means you can expect content for zero-day malware. So it's a pretty functional box. And again, this is managed from the same GUI that the wireless environment is managed from. Next one is called Insight. So this is quite a new feature. We kind of briefly covered that on the slides earlier. So this is about getting visibility into external cloud-based or internet-based solutions. So typically used for SaaS platforms, so things like Office 365, Skype, Salesforce, all the different ones you may be using. So this is a sort of a analysis and reporting tool to be able to show exactly what those features give you. So user experience, if the platform's up or down, is it performing well, that kind of thing. So it's essentially just used as a way of you as an administrator understanding how well your network's working for your users. So it's an analysis feature. Next one is switches. So fairly obvious, everyone needs switches on their network. So mixture of port configurations, 824 or 48, as shown in the pictures there. There's both layer 2 and layer 3 models. We can do stacking, non-stacking, 10 gig. So there's lots of different options in terms of the port configurations, as you'd expect from any network provider. PoE is available across all the different ranges of switches, from the small ones right to the big ones. And again, one of the other features that's built into these by default, which is a little bit more unusual for traditional network switches, is things like layer 7 visibility. So without a firewall involved at all, you can have a full layer 7 firewall or visibility feature enabled on those switches to see exactly what's going on based on the people that are connected. So yeah, standard kind of switch platform, but again, all managed from that same cloud interface. And then penultimate one to the last feature, Systems Manager. So we briefly mentioned this. This is a full MDM solution. Again, typically aimed at people who've got the full Meraki ecosystem. That's kind of where it's aimed at. So if you've got your existing firewalls and switches and access points, you can then add in that management of iOS, Android, Mac, or Windows devices. So small agent gets deployed to each of those. All the profile kind of things you can see there are deployed as you need it. So that integrates obviously with the policies and the reporting side of things from the GUI as well. And then the last feature, this is the newest addition to the Meraki portfolio, is cameras. So these they're very high spec cameras. They're extremely high quality. We have 4K vision, that kind of thing. But again, cloud managed, so cloud video. The advantage of that you get is cloud analytics as well. So some of the examples you can do on this is you kind of find a picture of a person or a face, and say, tell me where this person has been. It can trace somebody around a building based on the cameras being in different locations. So they're very powerful. There's things like pan tilt zoom cameras available, all PoE powered as typical, and that's both indoor and outdoor cameras. So we're starting to see some of our customers deploy this as part of their Meraki environment to sort of cover areas that traditionally may not be classed as IT. So that leaves that's the sort of summary. There are all the different features available to it. So these slides we'll send out afterwards, so everyone's got a copy.